I just want to make sure you guys are centered, focused. There we go. Nice. Okay.
My name is Eric Yike. I'm 23 years old and I've been working in film for about 7 years and editing for 4.
Yay! Okay.
So I'm just staring right here.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll tell you when it's been like 6 seconds.
Okay. Hi, my name is Brian Vaca. I'm 26 years old and I've been working in film for 3 years now.
Hi, my name is Sirat Singh. I've been an actor for about 7 years and a filmmaker for 3.
My name is Amara Chimeziet and I am a filmmaker and photographer myself. I started this show to spotlight young creatives who are using their work to kind of help push and make change. And I'm lucky enough to have filmmakers on the panel for today, which is awesome to have the first episode. But quickly, do you guys want to just like super quickly introduce yourselves? We can start with you, Sarah.
Yeah. I'm Sirat Singh. I'm a filmmaker and an actor and a writer. I graduated USC last year. Yeah.
Nice.
Hey, I'm Brian Vaca. I graduated USC class of 22. I'm a filmmaker, actor, writer, producer, director.
Hey, my name is Eric Yike. I also graduated from USC in 2023 and run a video editing business.
Very cool. Yeah, USC Trojans in the house. Great, guys. So the first question that I have for you guys today is if you guys have any memories of when the first film that you watched was, and like when you said, hey, this is like when I want to be a filmmaker. Yeah. I remember for me specifically, I remember watching like The Dark Knight the summer into my 8th grade year, and I saw Heath Ledger and also 10 Things I Hate About You, so I think it was just like Heath Ledger. And I was like, wait guys, like the intricacies of Dark Knight, I was like, I have to do this. Yeah.
For me, I always like watched a lot of Bollywood movies as a baby, and I would watch them over and over again. I don't know what I was looking for, but I just loved like disappearing into the worlds of the movies. I don't think I realized I wanted to be a filmmaker then, though. I think it was like a little bit later in high school. I think, yeah, I realized what I wanted to be a filmmaker when I realized the impact that I could have on my community. So it wasn't necessarily a specific film, but just like the intention behind it.
Yeah.
I would say for me, I remember watching, I think it was either the first or second grade, Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
I think I really liked it just because of like just how different it was, like the stop motion, the characters, the world building. I just never really seen anything like that, so that kind of opened my mind to like creativity and where it can go.
The first thing that sparked my interest in filmmaking was music videos. I was into like watching music videos on YouTube way before I was into watching movies or TV. So I liked a lot of like Eminem music videos or Childish Gambino. But then what I think really sealed the deal and made me want to go all in on filmmaking was watching Fight Club in high school, because that movie just opened my eyes to what is possible when you want to tell a story and how it can resonate with the viewer in different ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what you said about music videos I think is so valid too, because like it's not just film, it's music videos, it's also like TV shows. Like I know for me, Avatar: The Last Airbender growing up, that show like literally altered my perspective of life.
Yeah.
And they had so much to say about political ideologies. I could go on, so we're not going to.
That show's fantastic.
It's so good. And kind of what you were saying about Bollywood, like where it felt like, oh, you can connect to the culture too. Like when movies and TV shows have things to say beyond just like, oh, we're a movie and TV show. I think that's really important.
Even commercials, like when they make me cry, I'm like, wait, do I want to buy this?
That's super funny. Okay, cool. I know this question could be a little bit challenging because it's hard to put your finger on it, but I'm going to challenge you guys with it. But for you, like what makes a good movie? What makes you say like, hey, this really sat with me? Or a good music video, a good TV show, a good podcast? Yeah.
Well, I'm a Cancer, so I cry a lot, or I like to cry, so I think like just when like I said with the commercials, when something can move me, I think that's a marker for me of a good piece of art, even though I don't think that's like the standard marker, but I'm a sucker, so whenever I like can feel emotion from something, I'm like, oh, you did that well. Beyond that, like what you said, when something has a point to make or something to say or something to contribute to a larger conversation, it makes me think about something in a new way. It's really impactful for me. Like that's why I really loved and Get Out was so important for my development as a filmmaker, because just the overall message and how Jordan Peele plays with the medium to speak to society is insane. So yeah.
I heard he's doing a cowboy movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's really intense. I would kind of say the same thing, like, can you be moved by it? But I also think, like, maybe immersibility, whether it's, like, a movie, a TV show. Because not everything is meant to be moving. Some things are meant to just be entertaining and, like, variety thing. But it's like, am I invested in the story? Do I believe the story? I feel when things break immersibility and you realize you're watching a movie or, like, any other type of medium, it's kind of difficult to, like, take it seriously a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think just, like, if you can just kind of let yourself be immersed in it.
Yeah. I love that answer.
So for me, I'd say all of the best films of all time have done one thing, which is capture something that the population is feeling and put it in the movie. So any film that is able to do that, examples of films like that, I'd say are Everything Everywhere All at Once, Parasite, Fight Club, my favorite film. Those films were able to capture something that the entire population was feeling, but no one was able to say with words. But these filmmakers were able to convey those emotions through their work. So I'd say that is what makes a good film.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And those are the films that I feel like become the most like relevant and that we keep talking about.
Yeah,
for
like zeitgeist.
Yes, exactly. Like Get Out. Like again, we all went to USC, and I don't even know how many times I've watched Get Out for like some class.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna stick with us forever.
So important. They're like markers they're like time capsules. Like we can go back and watch what was trending at the time.
Yeah, and like they almost create their own like genre in and of themselves as well. Yeah, that's cool. So I also wanted to ask how you guys got into film, but then I realized that I didn't even go over the specifics. There's so many roles in filmmaking. There's directors, there's actors, there's producers, cinematographers. What lane? Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
No, I said editors.
Editors, writers, art directors. What kind of lanes do you guys tend to gravitate towards and occupy? And then we'll talk more about how you got started in those lanes.
I guess directing, I think I'm just a very visual person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do like telling a good story. So I think it's like directing and writing went hand in hand for me. Because even if I saw like a really good image, I was also wondering, well, what's the story behind that? And then my mind would just go like in circles and just thinking about, okay, if I see a random person, like, well, what's their story? Where have they been? Where are they going? And that kind of just led me towards like a rabbit hole of like just trying to tell like stories from characters.
That makes sense. I love that.
For me, I've always known that I was gonna go into video editing. I don't think I would be in film if I wasn't in video editing, because when I first started making videos, my very first experience of that was just shooting it on like my laptop web camera with like my friends in elementary school, then shooting on the 3DS camera. But then once I started actually trying to make real videos on an actual camera, I would just go out and film stuff to edit it. I didn't really care about cinematography, I didn't care about directing, I didn't care about writing a good script. I just would go out and film stuff with my friends and play around with it and edit it. So that's always been what filmmaking is about to me. So it's been very clear from the start for me that that's what I wanted to go into.
Yeah.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like what about editing speaks to you?
I don't know. I hope this doesn't come off like, I don't know, I'm just gonna say it, but like editing is the most cinematic part of filmmaking because every other part of filmmaking has its roots in something else. Like cinematography comes from photography, directing comes from stage directing, makeup comes from stage makeup. Everything has like hundreds of years of practice in a slightly different way besides editing. Editing was only created in order to make films.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's like the key piece of the puzzle that pieces the whole story together, which is why I love it. Because you could have like the best director, the best actors, the best script, best cinematography, and your film will turn out to be shit because you don't have a good editor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess that's
so
my
cool.
answer.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense because back to like the film school of it all, like there's this like one clip that if you go to any film school they'll make you watch where I think it's like Alfred Hitchcock, and it's like him and he like makes a weird face and they cut it with like a baby and like a mom and it makes him look like a nice person, like oh my god, like he loves the baby and the mom, and they put him like, then they put like a woman in like a bikini, but it's like a 1950s bikini, so it's like not even anything, and then he looks like a creep, and it's like just talking about the importance of editing, and I feel like a lot of filmmakers can overlook it, and yeah, it's definitely something that's super important too.
For me, I think, well, I got my start by like making videos for myself. So I would take like little horizontal clips of like different things I was doing with my friends or different events I was at, and then stitch them together to a song. And so I really liked editing in that way too, and also like music supervision, but also cinematography. But I went to school for acting, so I would say that's kind of how I got in. But I've made one film, and I did everything on that film. I was the only crew member. It was a documentary about my dad. So I think the role I'll take in the future is probably writer, director. But for now, it's just been kind of like a little bit of everything.
That makes sense. I think another reason why I've always loved filmmaking is that for me it like ties your hands in so many different things, kind of similar to what you were saying, like oh there's playwriting, there's like makeup and hair, and I feel like only USC kids might get this, but I'm in IWA, which is like an interdisciplinary degree, and I'm like oh I love computer science, I love this, I love that, and I feel like you get to touch so many different aspects, like even you can make a movie about space, like, and I think one of the reasons that's kind of why it like stuck out to me. So filmmaking, like many other art forms, requires a lot of like perseverance, and there's like that idea of like the starving artist. So I was wondering how you guys handle like side hustles and finances and supporting your dreams as filmmakers.
That's a good question.
I'm down to answer this one. So that's like the most real thing about being in film is that you are not going to make a lot of money from it at first, no matter what you do. So for me, how I was able to like overcome that was just really getting a head start on things. Like I basically started building what is now my editing business sophomore year at USC. So I was just editing projects, editing documentaries, commercials, music videos, whatever. And a lot of that was for free because people can't trust you to pay you for work when you have no work to show. So it's just about overcoming that initial step. But once you do overcome that and you are able to start charging what you're worth for your work, then you're able to actually make it a consistent thing and make it your real job.
Yeah. And can you talk more about your editing business and kind of like the business side and aspect of filmmaking?
Yeah. The business side of filmmaking actually is quite interesting to me. It's kind of fun because I'm not sure how to answer that question, but the first thing it makes me think of is recently what I've been really looking into as like the next steps for my business is sales, because I'm realizing how important it is to be able to sell yourself as a filmmaker. That's like the most important thing when you're young and first starting your career, because most people are not going to give you like an opportunity just because like you are some person. Hey, I just graduated film school, like let me direct this TV series that's going on Netflix. Like, no one's gonna let you just do that straight out the gate. So, yeah, just being able to sell yourself and really make it known to the people who you work with what you're actually able to provide for them. And if the person who you're working with understands that you're bringing real value to the table, then they're going to say yes every time. So it's about figuring out what your value that you're able to bring is. And from there, it's, you know, all easier.
And like knowing the perspective that you're coming from as well. What perspective are they buying? Whose eye are they buying? Like being able to really pinpoint that and then put it on paper for someone is a skill in itself.
Completely.
Yeah.
And I think like creating your own opportunities, that's something that I've been super proud of seeing my friends who are mostly actors and filmmakers do. We're exactly a year, Lusty, I know. You're 2
As
years
of
exactly.
today.
As of today, exactly a year from graduation.
Yeah.
And seeing my friends who have put together playwriting communities and art shows and galleries.
Shout
and
out Fifth Floor. Shout out
Fifth Floor,
Eight
yeah. 8 Ball Studios, Fifth Floor Studios. Just creating your own opportunities, I think, is so important because you're not going to be handed something. Like, you're going to, so many stories of how some, like Lin-Manuel Miranda literally wrote Hamilton and then just put it on, you know what I'm saying? Not just, but like, you know, you have to take the leap for yourself. Yeah.
I can definitely speak to the side hustle part.
Yeah.
And going off of that, it's like, when you're working a 9 to 5, it's really hard to convince yourself that you're an artist, you're a filmmaker, but you just gotta keep at it. You gotta like know, okay, why am I here? Why am I making this money? What? And then it's like you do this job, you get home and you start another job. You work on your script, or you have meetings with producers, or you start editing something else. And it's really tough, but you just have to stay committed to the vision and like what your end goal is, and don't lose sight of the fact, like, even if you aren't billed as an artist, you're still an artist. Like, that doesn't make or break what you can call yourself or what you are. What makes or breaks that is if you're making art.
Yeah.
You know? So if you fall off, that's when you have to like really elaborate or really what's the word I'm looking for?
Emphasize.
Really
spotlight.
analyze.
Yes. No, you're good.
Really think about what your intention is and what your goal is and where your priorities lie. Just keep making art and you can keep calling yourself an artist, you know? Don't wait for inspiration to strike. You have to be coming up with the inspiration.
I think to kind of add on to that, I think it just comes down to like how badly do you want it.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, we're all in LA and like the city and New York is like filled with just creatives.
Yeah.
So like people talk about saturation in the industry, but I think the people that cut through are just like, it's not really about talent, it's just about perseverance.
Exactly.
You don't quit because of people that do, but the people that don't, those are the ones that are making the things that are coming out today, or they're being recognized for their talent. You have to keep pushing through, and it is hard, but if it's like making art is like breathing for us, like why would you do otherwise?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially like you said in LA, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or who am I? Like, is a filmmaker or an actor or an influencer or whatever. And there's always going to be someone who wants it more than you, so you just have to make sure you're staying on top of it.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when you think about Hollywood, especially me growing up like in New York, Pennsylvania, you think like, oh, Hollywood, so I have to be the next Quentin Tarantino or nothing. And not saying you cannot strive for that, but also again, being in LA and seeing what people do, it's like, yeah, you can do that, but you could also do commercials, and you can also do music videos, like you said, and do a whole bunch of other things.
Like, there's so many different niches, but I think that's the thing they don't teach us in school. It's like,
but there's so many other pathways and opportunities, and they're just as valid, and as long as you're doing what you love. Brian, I know you're also a filmmaker / businessman in your own right too. Do you want to speak to that as well?
I guess that's such an interesting question. Like on the way here, I was creating a whole business thing related to film. I think I'm from LA, so being in LA, I feel like I met a lot of people. And one of the things about being a lot of artists is that in a city like LA, everybody says they're an artist, and I think the people I've really connected with are the ones I've built genuine relationships with, like not only just as collaborators, but also as like friends.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm trying to do now is build a social club just for that, for like authentic relationships and things like that, and to bring not only the industry together, but like the up and comers.
Yeah.
I think the people that want to build genuine relationships, because I think that only helps propel like the work forward, but also build community. Like it is important to do the work, but I think more important than the work is like building those like trust relationships. But yeah, the business and film side, like I started production companies and done that. I remember I studied business at USC. I also did film, but I remember this Mexican director came, and I went up to him and I told him like, hey, I'm a business major, am I in the wrong field? Like, am I wasting my time being a business major? Should I just switch over to film? And he told me, well, like you're gonna have to know the business because everybody in film school is gonna know the film, but not everybody's gonna know the business, and it's those people like that are gonna, I guess, have that like edge because it is show business, but at the end of the day, it's business.
That's why they have a whole BCA too, business and cinematic arts, because it's important to them.
My dad is an engineer by training, and he would.
Awesome.
Oh, nice. There's this like saying that says like, mechanics make doctors and doctors make artists, which I was thinking is super interesting, like the way that it cycles. But since my dad is an engineer, he would always say like, you could be the smartest engineer in the world, but if you cannot communicate with like the salesperson who's selling your product, what's the point? So that's something that I always like to keep with me. But cool, thank you guys for those answers. Okay, so switching back into more of the filmmaking talk, I want to know what your guys' approach to directing is, because this is something that I always think about, because I actually feel like I'm more of a writer by nature, and I just like to direct my work, so I'm like, oh, it's my baby, I want to direct it. But yeah, I was wondering if you guys consider yourself to be like more auteur, like a Wes Anderson, or like improv-ish, like a Judd Apatow, or like somewhere in the middle, like maybe like a Sofia Coppola moment. I know that for me, like particularly, like I feel like somewhere in the middle works for me, because I feel like if it's too planned out, then there's not enough time for like play. But if it's too random, then it's like, oh, we're not keeping a schedule. Like this needs to get done, because these film hours are long. So, what do you guys think?
I guess what I've done is I've kind of what you just said. Don't have it too planned out, but kind of have the sandbox you're kind of playing with. Like, okay, I have a checklist of shots I need to get through, but I allow myself like something can and probably will happen where you're like, maybe that shot doesn't work, and you drop a shot, or you add a shot because it actually makes more sense. Or you combine shots. Like I did a short film where all that stuff happened, and it's like it like the plan loosely still kept the same, but there were so many additions. When I direct, I try not to just go for cool shots. I think like I don't like just adding cool shots just because it's gonna look cool. I think it has to serve the story, and it has to reveal something about the character and or the story. It's just not enough to just do something that looks cool. It is film. It's kind of empty. It's flashy, unless like that's the message you're trying to put forward. But most of the time it isn't. So it's like you have to be cohesive. And sometimes like sure you might go for a boring shot, but like the story is really solid. So like it's not meant to be flashy. But when I direct, I really just like to focus on like the characters. I think I just like characters and like what they speak, or even when they're not having dialogue, it's just what they're saying with like their bodies.
I love that.
I've done a bit of work in documentaries, so for that you can't really have a strict plan. You kind of need to like leave room for the beauty of the moment and like the spontaneity that comes from just capturing the subject. So that's, I guess, my directing approach for docs. But for shorts, like I said, I come from an acting background, so I'm also pretty character heavy. I intend to, on my next film, which is a narrative short, give the actors like room to really make it their own, and I'm excited to see how I will approach it as a director with an acting background, because I hear that actors make the best directors.
I've heard that too.
But I'm excited. I definitely want the actors to feel like they have autonomy, which is huge, because as an actor you don't get a lot of that. but also it's my baby, so I want to be able to like stick to my vision, but not be too strict about it, because at the end of the day, it's not just my project anymore. It's everyone who's working on the set with me, which is going to be new for me, but I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I do, you know, I direct quite a few videos on top of doing all the editing stuff, and when I do direct, I would say I lean more towards an auteur style. I definitely have a strong vision at the start and want that feeling of that vision to come through in the final product, but everything that they were both saying is completely true about how once the project gets going, you have to be able to adapt and change for what's best fit for the project, because 100% of the time, what's best fit for the project in your initial idea is not what's best fit for the project on the day of in set. So you always have to be able to adapt and change when you're directing, but then just to touch on, you know, I also do, you know, most of my work that I do is editing, and when you're editing, it's a collaborative process between me and the director, and when I'm doing that, it's more of my goal is to enhance and bring the director's vision to life rather than, you know, bring in too many new ideas of my own. So I guess that's the difference with what I do. Yeah.
Between you directing but also editing, it's like you have to kind of dim one part of yourself.
Yeah.
And like when I do direct, I always edit it, which kind of shows that why I have that auteur style. So like, yeah, when I direct, I like having that complete control through the entire project, but then, yeah, editing is very different, so it's interesting that I do those two different types of things.
Yeah. I think adaptability and flexibility are one of the most important traits that you should have if you're planning on being in this industry, no matter what role, like director, actor, set designer, costumer, whatever, like, because so many problems arise day of on set or in pre-production or whenever. You just have to be able to turn on a dime and just get to work. That's so important. And like, I don't know, have you guys seen Monkey Man?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, Dev Patel's talked about so many problems that arose in the production of that movie, from like producers dropping out to like problems on set, like breaking a limb or a camera, like losing equipment and stuff like that. So, but he still made an amazing movie. It's just about, like I said, that adaptability and everyone being on the same page when it comes to that.
That makes sense, and I think it's super important. And sometimes those constraints, like, sometimes help you in a way, because then it forces you to think creatively and think think scrappily and think outside the box, and you have to get it done. Again, it's all about that like scrappy mentality. I think a lot of filmmakers operate like that.
Yeah.
And we're back. What were you guys saying?
Should I just take it back from that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I guess I would say to add another skills is communication and consideration. Like communication, like there's no room for vagueness in film, and like in collaboration, you have to be straight up about what you mean and what you say. You can't hide anything, because the thing is, not only are crew members on the line, money's on the line. It's naturally part of the business. And with consideration, it's just consideration for the budget and consideration for the crew members. So budget, you can't really go over, and if you do, you have to be making a really great film that warrants that. And with consideration, I think I heard Spielberg say, it's like when he's working, he makes sure to consider the editor in terms of making sure he gets all the footage and all the coverage he needs, so that the editor has enough to play with, because it's so easy to just shoot what you think you need, and then the editor gets the footage and then runs into issues where like you would need another shot, but you can't go back.
You can't go back. Yeah. That makes sense. Like, it's definitely a team sport. Filmmaking is a team sport, and I think the more that you realize that, the more efficient that you become. And every like good director will say that, like, a good director is as good as his cinematographer. So many of like directors will use the same cinematographers and the same editors if they can. The same actors, like we all know, like they like to pair off.
I love that.
Yeah, it's so cute. It's like one of my good actor friends. We always kiki. We're like, oh, when we get famous, we're gonna like.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Like Wes Anderson does that. Yorgos.
Yes.
His name
Yes.
does that. Yeah.
Yes. Sofia Coppola.
Yeah.
What's his name? Scorsese. You guys might not have heard of him. You guys That's my favorite film joke. Okay, cool. So we're coming on to the final couple of questions. We were saying that filmmaking is all about adaptability and being able to change, and with that comes a lot of challenges. So do you guys have any like words of inspiration for challenges that you faced and how you've been able to overcome them relating to like the film industry?
What is not a challenge?
Real.
Like film industry or
Oh.
different projects that you've been on?
But like either, just anything relating to film. Yeah.
I guess I would say I recently made, I guess, my first like proper short film back in like September, and I think
Was it the Barbie one?
yeah, it was like I made like my own
nice.
version of like a Barbie story, but my own take on it. And before I made that though, I was very like hesitant because I didn't really have a camera that like a proper like cinema camera. I was thinking about budget. I was looking into permits, and I was like, this is gonna be pretty expensive.
Yep.
And I think one of the things is like even if you don't have all the fancy equipment and everything, or if you don't have as many crew members as you might need, you just need to hop in and do it. And I think in the process, like you're obviously gonna learn a lot and make mistakes, but you need to start. I think you just need to be making things, and like over time, you're gonna figure out your signature and your style and like how best you work with. But you can't do that if you're in your head all the time. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Going off of that, I would say like, especially like from a director's standpoint, stay playful, stay relaxed, and because everyone's kind of looking at you to set the tone. So if a challenge arises and you are visibly stressed out, everyone else is going to be tense. So you just have to like stay calm, stay light, you know, and adapt. Exactly. He's saying exactly to my own point.
So, all right, to give the editors perspective on this, because they both just talked about production. I don't know. I'd say the biggest challenge that you face trying to become an editor is getting those first couple projects. I'd say the best way to overcome that is to just do anything. Like get your hands on anything you could possibly edit, whether it's your own project that you directed, whether it's just a spec ad that you make using entirely stock footage. You just need to find somewhere to start. Because once you connect with a couple directors, a couple producers who keep coming back to you for work because they know you're a good editor, then things start getting a bit easier, but it's those first couple projects that are really difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure. And your first movie, like whatever, it's probably not even gonna be good, but it just needs to be done. Like, and then you make the second one and it's gonna be better, and you just keep going.
Your first 100 things you work on are not gonna be good.
Yeah,
Like
and
you
you're
really
probably
just
gonna
have
hate
to.
them too.
Yeah, you just gotta get through as much as possible, as quickly as possible.
It's just about building a toolkit, building skills, and getting practice.
Yeah, and being able to work with people and all of that good stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay, since this is the first episode, I will explain. I think with each episode, I want to end off with how you can use this specific art form to impact the community around you, and it doesn't have to be anything super deep or serious. But I think that's a good way to tie everything together. So with that, how do you use film and filmmaking to help impact the community around you?
I can start with this question because that's the reason I got into film to begin with. That's the reason I got into acting, is to tell my community stories and to give them a greater voice in the grand conversation that's being had across all types of media. So really at the core of everything I make is telling stories of marginalized and underrepresented people and telling them authentically to the person whose story is being told. Because the conversation around representation is so huge, and there can be representation that's terrible and actually moves your community back in the grand conversation. So it's just about being authentic to the community not saying that it's a monolith, but not conforming or not conforming to stereotypes or making them worse by what you're putting out, I think is really important. Adding new perspectives that help people see your community more wholly is really important.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I would say, sometimes I struggle with that. Like, my background is like I'm Mexican American, but I have, I guess, different perspectives. Like, I guess you could say I grew like a very privileged life, so I kind of felt bad because with the stories about being marginalized, I felt like sometimes I couldn't relate. There were things I could, but I didn't want to force myself to try to tell those stories. But I think the biggest thing with the impact is just being like, you just existing in this space is already so huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like, even if you don't tell quite the same stories or have the same perspective, I think bringing more, for example, Latinos into this space just really helps like create, like, it will expand the space. Like, to have other people that don't have the same perspective to be part of it, and then to create kind of like a mosaic of experiences.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, and I think that's just as valid because, especially me, like, my family is Nigerian American, and like, of course, like, we don't know the joke where it's like, oh, like, there's a lot about stories about like, oh, like the struggles and stuff. My mom is a pharmacist, my dad's an engineer, like, that's just not my life. But it's actually really fine, like, that story is like just as valid, and it just rounds like the whole story of like blackness out. So yeah, I think what you're saying, I definitely relate to.
Yeah, it's important not to like stick to the sob stories. Like, no one needs that.
Right.
We all know about the struggle.
Yeah.
But tell the stories of the beauty of your community, and the diversity within your community.
Yep. Yeah, that's so fair.
So for me, in my work, I work very frequently one-on-one with all sorts of different types of people. So I work with musicians, I work with brand owners, I work with individuals who run their own company, all sorts of different things. And where I think that I'm able to create impact is by basically bringing light to people's voices who deserve more attention to what they're doing, because that's really what filmmaking is all about, is like communication between two people, whether that's the two people who are sitting in the editing room together going back and forth as to what's going to look best for the cut, or whether that's the person who you're making a documentary on with the director. It's all about communication and relationships. So really just highlighting people's voices who should be heard is a big reason why I do it.
I love that. Cool. Thank you guys all for tuning into the first episode, and we will see you in the next one.